Today I am reviewing the Optoma Photon Go Ultra Short Throw Projector. If at any time you'd like to explore this product for yourself and grab it at a great price, be sure to check the links below the video. I have spent the last 3 weeks living with the Optoma ML1080UST, and I am going to be completely honest with you right out of the gate. This projector is a bizarre, fascinating, and deeply flawed piece of hardware that I desperately wanted to love more than I actually did. If you have been hunting for a way to turn a tiny apartment wall into a massive screen without needing a dedicated theater room, you have probably seen this thing pop up in your search results. It promises the moon with its triple laser technology and ultra-short throw convenience, but after setting it up on my credenza and putting it through its paces with everything from high bitrate 4K streams to late-night gaming sessions, I have a much clearer picture of who this is actually for and, more importantly, who should stay far away from it. Let's start with the physical footprint, because that is the primary selling point. This is an ultra-short throw projector, meaning you can place it just inches away from the wall and get a massive image. I had it sitting exactly 10 inches from my projection surface, and it easily threw a picture that felt like a 60-inch television. That is the magic of the ML1080UST. If you live in a place where you cannot mount a television, or you hate the idea of a massive black rectangle dominating your living room when it is turned off, this is a very compelling alternative. It is compact, it looks modern, and the Triple Laser RGB light source is genuinely impressive when it comes to color accuracy. When I was watching nature documentaries, the greens were vibrant and the skin tones were remarkably natural, which is something you rarely see in projectors at this price point. You can find the current pricing and check out the technical specs through the link below if you want to see exactly what the market is doing with this model right now. However, we need to talk about the setup process because it was not the plug-and-play dream I was hoping for. While the hardware is physically small, getting the image perfectly square and focused is a test of patience. Because it is an ultra-short throw device, the slightest nudge on your furniture throws the geometry completely out of whack. I spent an hour just trying to get the keystone correction to look right without introducing digital artifacts that made the edges of my screen look soft. If you are the type of person who just wants to turn on a device and have it work perfectly every single time, this is going to frustrate you. It is a projector that requires a dedicated shelf or stand that absolutely never moves. If you have pets or kids who bump into furniture, you're going to be constantly readjusting this thing. Let's talk about the triple laser tech. This is the standout feature that Optoma is hanging their hat on, and for the most part, it delivers. The color gamut is wide and the brightness is punchy, especially in a dark room. I watched a few movies with the lights dimmed, and the image quality was genuinely cinematic. There is a depth to the image that you just don't get with standard lamp-based projectors. But there is a catch, and it is a big one. The brightness levels are marketed as being sufficient for daytime viewing, but in my experience, that is a bit of a stretch. Unless you have blackout curtains and a high-quality ambient light rejecting screen, you're going to struggle during the middle of the day. If you are planning to use this in a bright living room with windows everywhere, you're going to be disappointed by the washed-out blacks and the lack of contrast. It is a fantastic nighttime device, but it is not a television replacement for a sun-drenched room. Then there is the Google TV integration. On paper, having the operating system built in sounds like a dream. You don't need to plug in a Roku stick or an Apple TV, and you can just sign into your accounts and start streaming. In practice, the interface feels sluggish. I noticed a perceptible lag when navigating through menus, and there were times when the apps would stutter or take a few seconds to load high-definition streams. It feels like the hardware inside is just barely keeping up with the software overhead. I eventually gave up on the built-in smart features and plugged in my own streaming device, which made the experience much snappier. If you are considering picking one up, check the link below to see if there are any current firmware updates or bundles that might improve the software experience, but my advice is to plan on using an external streaming box for a smoother user interface. Now, let's address the audio. The unit features integrated Dolby audio, and I have to say, for a projector this size, it is surprisingly capable. It won't replace a dedicated surround sound system, and it certainly lacks the bass response you would want for a blockbuster action movie, but for casual viewing, it is perfectly serviceable. The audio is clear, and the dialogue is crisp, which is more than I can say for most projectors I have tested. If you're setting this up in a bedroom or a small office, you might not even feel the need for external speakers. However, if you are building a home theater, you're going to want to utilize the audio out ports to connect a soundbar or a receiver. I want to be very clear about who should avoid this product. If you are looking for a plug-and-play experience to replace a 75-inch LED TV, you're going to have a bad time. The maintenance involved in keeping an ultra-short throw projector perfectly aligned is significantly higher than just hanging a TV on a wall. Also, if you're a competitive gamer, the input lag might be a deal breaker for you. While it is fine for casual gaming, I felt a slight disconnect when playing fast-paced shooters. If you are a hardcore gamer, you know exactly what I am talking about and you should probably look elsewhere. But if you're a film buff who wants a massive image that can be tucked away in a cabinet or moved between rooms, the flexibility here is unmatched. It is a niche product for a specific type of user, and that user is someone who values the aesthetic of a clean room over the convenience of a standard television. Value is always a tricky conversation with projectors like this. You're paying a premium for the form factor and the triple laser light source. If you strictly look at the price-to-performance ratio in terms of pure image quality, you could probably find a standard throw projector for less money that performs just as well. But you aren't just paying for the image, you're paying for the ability to put a massive screen in a space where a traditional projector would never work. That is where the value proposition lies. I think the pricing is competitive given the tech inside, but you have to be honest with yourself about whether you actually need the ultra-short throw feature. If you have the space for a standard setup, you're paying extra for a feature you might not even use. You can look at the current pricing through the link below to decide if that premium is worth it for your specific living situation. The build quality itself is solid. It feels dense and well-constructed, not like a cheap piece of plastic. The cooling fans are audible, but they aren't intrusive. During quiet scenes in a movie, you can hear a faint hum, but it is easily masked by the audio of the content you are watching. I never felt like the unit was overheating or struggling, even after 3 or 4 hours of continuous use. That is a testament to the cooling design, which seems to be well thought out. I did notice that the exterior of the unit gets quite warm, so make sure you don't have it shoved into a tight, enclosed space where it can't vent properly. It needs room to breathe, even though it is designed to sit close to the wall. Another point of contention for me was the remote control. It is functional, but it feels a bit cheap compared to the rest of the unit. It lacks backlighting, which is a massive oversight for a device that is meant to be used in dark rooms. Trying to find the volume button or the home button in the dark is a chore, and I ended up using a universal remote for most of my testing. It is a small detail, but in a premium product, these things matter. If you are like me and you use your home theater in the dark, you will probably want to invest in a better remote or a smartphone app control solution. I also spent some time looking at the color calibration out of the box. Optoma has done a decent job with the factory settings, but it definitely leans a bit toward the cooler side of the spectrum. If you are a color purist, you will definitely want to spend some time in the settings menu tweaking the color temperature and the RGB gains. It isn't a perfect out-of-the-box experience for professionals, but for the average consumer, it is more than acceptable. The menus are deep, and there is plenty of room for customization if you are willing to spend the time to dial it in. Ultimately, my experience with the Optoma ML1080UST was a mix of genuine excitement and practical frustration. It is a stunning piece of technology that makes a massive screen feel accessible, but it demands a level of care and setup that the average consumer might find exhausting. It is not a television, and it shouldn't be treated like one. It is a specialized tool for people who want a large-scale viewing experience without the visual clutter of a giant display. If you are that person, and you have the patience to get the setup right, you are going to be rewarded with a beautiful, vibrant, and immersive picture that feels like a real theater. If you're just looking for a simple way to watch Netflix, there are much easier paths to take. Check the link below to see the current availability and to compare it with other models if you're still on the fence. At the end of the day, it is a brilliant projector that just needs a bit of love to really shine. It is not for everyone, but for the right person, it is exactly the kind of innovation that makes home entertainment exciting again. Just make sure you know what you're getting into before you pull the trigger, and you will likely be very happy with what this little powerhouse can do for your movie nights.